Imagine this. Someone hands you a glass of beer, wine, or cider. You take a sip without thinking twice. It feels completely ordinary. But that simple act connects you to a story that stretches back millions of years, long before cities, long before farming, and even before humans existed. The history of alcohol doesn't begin in a brewery. It begins deep inside an ancient African forest. Around 10 million years ago, the ancestors of modern humans lived among fruit trees. Every season, ripe fruit would fall onto the forest floor. Left untouched, natural yeast began feeding on the fruit's sugars, creating tiny amounts of ethanol through fermentation. When early primates ate that fruit, something unusual happened. They experienced the effects of alcohol. Not enough to become heavily intoxicated, but enough that the fermented fruit became attractive. It contained more calories, stronger aromas, and often signaled ripe food that was worth searching for. Over countless generations, natural selection favored individuals who could detect and digest ethanol more efficiently. In other words, our attraction to alcohol may be far older than civilization itself. This idea became widely known through biologist Robert Dudley's Drunken monkey hypothesis, which suggests that our taste for alcohol evolved from millions of years of eating naturally fermented fruit. So by the time humans appeared, they weren't discovering alcohol for the first time. They were simply learning how to create something nature had already introduced. But when did that happen? The answer takes us to a cave in modern-day Israel. About 13,000 years ago, people belonging to the Natufian culture carved stone mortars directly into the cave floor. When archaeologists examined the residue trapped inside those mortars, they found evidence that while barley and wheat had been soaked, sprouted, and fermented, they had made beer. What's remarkable is that these people weren't farmers. Agriculture hadn't begun. They gathered wild grains from nature, hunted animals, and still lived as hunter-gatherers. Yet they invested time and effort into brewing alcohol. That discovery challenged one of archaeology's oldest assumptions. For generations, historians believed humans first developed farming, settled into villages, and only afterward invented alcoholic drinks. But the evidence suggests the opposite might be true. Brewing appears to have existed before organized agriculture. And that wasn't the only surprise. Travel east to what is now southeastern Turkey. Roughly 12,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers built one of the most astonishing archaeological sites ever discovered, Göbekli Tepe. Massive stone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, were carefully carved and arranged into huge circular structures. This was centuries before pottery, cities, or permanent settlements. For years, archaeologists struggled to explain why nomadic people would organize enormous construction projects. Then another clue appeared. Large stone containers found at the site contained chemical traces linked to fermented grain. Many researchers now believe Göbekli Tepe wasn't a village. It may have been a ceremonial gathering place where large groups met for rituals, feasts, and shared alcoholic drinks. That leads to one of the biggest questions in human history. Why did people begin farming in the first place? Traditional thinking says agriculture was developed to produce reliable food. But archaeologist Patrick McGovern has proposed another possibility. Maybe people wanted a dependable supply of grain, not primarily for bread, but for beer. Think about it. Making bread requires grinding grain, preparing dough, and baking it over controlled heat. Fermentation is surprisingly simple. Combine grain with water, allow natural yeast to do its work, and time handles the rest. If communities valued alcohol enough for celebrations, ceremonies, and social gatherings, growing grain consistently suddenly becomes a powerful incentive. Whether or not that theory is completely correct, it offers a fascinating way to rethink one of humanity's greatest turning points. As thousands of years passed, brewing became more advanced. Around 7000 BC in Jiahu, China, people created a fermented beverage using rice, honey, grapes, and hawthorn fruit. Chemical analysis of ancient pottery revealed one of the world's earliest known mixed alcoholic recipes. This wasn't an accident. It was carefully crafted. Different ingredients were intentionally combined to create a unique drink. By the time ancient Egypt rose to power, beer had become essential to everyday life. Workers constructing monumental projects, including the pyramids, received beer as part of their daily wages. It wasn't simply a reward. It was practical. Brewing helped make beverages safer than untreated river water, while also providing valuable calories and nutrients. For laborers working under the hot Egyptian sun, beer supplied hydration, energy, and food all at once. Its importance went even further. Beer played a role in religion, medicine, and ceremony. It appeared in offerings to the gods, accompanied the dead into the afterlife, and was mixed with herbs as a treatment for various illnesses. It functioned as nourishment, currency, medicine, and ritual, all in a single drink. When you step back and look at the entire timeline, an incredible pattern emerges. Millions of years ago, our primate ancestors naturally consumed fermented fruit. Thousands of years before farming, hunter-gatherers intentionally brewed alcohol. Early ceremonial centers may have brought people together around shared feasts and drinks. The earliest farming communities cultivated grain. Ancient civilizations eventually built economies, religions, and daily life around brewing. Alcohol wasn't just another invention that appeared after civilization. There's a genuine possibility it helped shape civilization itself. So the next time someone raises a glass during a celebration, remember, you're participating in a tradition that may stretch back millions of years. The containers changed. The recipes evolved. The cultures transformed. But the instinct remains remarkably familiar. It may have begun with nothing more than an overripe piece of fruit lying on the forest floor.